Welcome to the Star Podcast.
Wow. Star Podcast.
Welcome to the Star Podcast, hosted by TPS Group of Companies. Each week, we share tips and stories from safety, trucking, and recruitment, and everything in between. Listen now.
Overall losses in 2023 were 567 million. So, and this is keeping in mind that we estimate that only 5 to 10% of victims report to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
That is just one crazy stat shared on the podcast today when we talk all about fraud, scams, and being safe online. Welcome back to another episode of the Star Podcast, where we discuss safety, trucking, and recruitment. I think that everyone has either seen an online scam or maybe a telephone scam, or at the very least, heard about someone affected by one. That's why we're lucky today to be joined by Jeff Horncastle of the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. And Jeff shares so many great tips, but also just things to be aware of in order to stay safe. I've included all the important links and contact details in the show notes so that you can access that. Listen now.
So I just want to thank you, Jeff, for joining us today. I think this topic is so important with all of the online and offline telephone scams and things that are going on. We really appreciate your time and you joining us here today to share all your knowledge. So welcome.
I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So I was just hoping that to start, you could give us a little introduction about yourself, kind of what you do and your organization, just to give us a little bit of background.
Yes, my name is Jeff Horncastle. I am the Acting Client and Communications Outreach Officer at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So I coordinate most of our prevention initiatives at the CAFC. So most importantly, what does the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre do? So our mandate is, first of all, we're a national police service that gathers intelligence on fraud across Canada, and we assist police of jurisdiction with enforcement and prevention efforts. So we help businesses and citizens report fraud, learn about fraud, recognize the warning signs of fraud, and protect themselves from fraud.
Well, you guys must be very busy because it seems like everywhere I turn, there's something new popping up. So I think it's such an important topic for sure. So thanks so much for being here. Can you share with us then a little bit some of the common online or offline scams that are happening right now that you see?
Yeah, so first of all, we document over 30 types of fraud at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. So it's almost impossible for Canadians in general to remember how does every type of scam work, right? Because there's so many different variations out there. But with that being said, if we focus on the common tools that fraudsters are using or common techniques, and there's more of a chance that we're equipping ourselves with the tools necessary to protect ourselves from being a victim, right? So cyber-enabled fraud 2023 accounted for 75% of overall losses reported to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
Wow.
Overall losses in 2023 were 567 million. So, and this is keeping in mind that we estimate that only 5 to 10% of victims report to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre for various reasons.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few reasons why their reporting is so low. Victims may be ashamed and may not want to discuss what happened to them. They, embarrassed maybe a little bit. They may not want to report unless they're guaranteed restitution, unless they're guaranteed to get their money back, right? So they might say, well, you know what, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre doesn't investigate, so I'm not going to report to them type thing, right? It's a matter of, getting the public Canadians to understand what the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre does. On top of sharing prevention messaging, we have the ability to link information from reports across the country and share that information with law enforcement, not only in Canada, but across the world as well. So going back to what we're seeing types of fraud, I touched on cyber-enabled fraud. We hear so much about artificial intelligence. Which is something new that we're, generally don't know too much about. Now, when we're looking at AI, we may come across a deepfake video of a celebrity or a news anchor, someone trustworthy, right? So a deepfake is a fake video that's created with artificial intelligence. They're and these videos are commonly used to try to promote fraudulent investment platforms, crypto investment platforms. So we might see a video of Elon Musk or a news anchor or celebrity promoting a cryptocurrency platform, or it might be merchandise on social media, an ad you come across, right? So it's so important to be careful, even if you do see a video of somebody that you recognize and you generally trust, to always go a step further and do some research. I did mention crypto investments. There was a top reported type of fraud to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre based on dollar loss in 2023 with 309 million lost. Very important that if you don't know much about the subject, then obviously if you're deciding to invest, you're putting yourself at risk.
Right.
So always do as much research as you can.
Can you just break it down a little bit more? So maybe I'm on whatever, a social media platform. I see a video about a celebrity. I click the video and watch it. So how does the scam work? Is it like a link sending you somewhere to invest what this person also invested in, and that's when they get your banking information? Is that how that would work, or how, like?
Yeah, more or less. So you come across this video, it would probably direct you to a website or a link, like you mentioned, and it would encourage you to invest right away to get a really high return on your investment, right? Unfortunately, these websites, for the most part, are really well done and legitimate looking.
Yeah.
So, and in some cases, they'll copy names of real companies and alter the domain a little bit. For example, change a lowercase I for a lowercase L, which you may not notice right away.
Yep.
And that's just one example, right? So what happens with these crypto investments is that victims are asked to invest a small amount to start off, $200 or $300, and in a lot of cases, they'll actually get a return on that initial investment to try to lure them in and make them believe that it's a legitimate platform.
Oh, wow.
So they get that back, and then they decide to invest more and more. And on these platforms, they can actually see their money growing. And months down the line, when it comes time to withdraw the funds that they've invested, that's when they realize that they've been scammed or frauded.
Wow. Like, that's so crazy because it seems real. Like, you can see things, it looks legit. So is there signs of things? Like you mentioned, obviously, like spelling mistakes and things, but how can you tell?
Well, it's a matter of, in a lot of cases, it's really hard to tell. So this is where you have to reach out to the Ontario Securities Commission, for example, or your provincial securities commission. Verify if they're registered by keeping in mind that these fraudsters can copy names of real companies, right? So you want to verify like the contact information, check them out on a map online, verify their domain, everything you can. There's actually a national registration tool you can use as well at aretheyregistered.ca to see if a company is registered as well.
You can look up, and that's one way to check. Okay, that's amazing. I'll put that link in the show notes for anyone who wants to use that for sure.
Now, like I mentioned, there's so much to cover. Now, when we're talking about technology, and there's a lot of cyber-enabled fraud. With that being said, there's a lot of telephone fraud as well, right?
Yes. Yep.
I think we could all say that we've probably received a couple of calls within the last week, right? At least. And this is all due to automation. So it's not like it was 20 years ago where fraudsters were manually dialing phone numbers, going through the phone book. Now, fraudsters have the ability to automate phone calls and dial different combinations of phone numbers. In fact, they have, for the most part, they have no idea who they're calling, right? They're just targeting anyone that they possibly can. So keep in mind with telephone fraud that caller ID spoofing is one of the main tactics that fraudsters are using. So, you see a number come up on your call display, that doesn't mean that that's the number that the call is originating from. You always want to make sure that, especially if the call's asking for personal information, or they're threatening you, or whatever the case may be, that you're going to let them know that you're going to call them back, and
Yes.
look up the official phone number and make that outgoing call. Service frauds are on the rise, where fraudsters are claiming to be your cell phone company, offering you a really awesome deal on a $40 a month plan with a brand new iPhone, let's say. And what they're doing is looking to gather your personal information to you be able to utilize that for identity fraud. So in this case here, same deal. Let them know you're going to call them back. Call your phone company directly by finding their official phone number.
I've done that before, and I think I maybe insulted them. I said, I'm going to call you back. And they're like, why? And I said, because there's so many scams right now. I don't know if you're legit or not. So I understand that you're saying you are, but I don't know. Like, there's just so many things. And I don't
Exactly.
yeah.
Like how do you prove, it might sound legit, but there's no way to prove now with caller ID spoofing or, the ability to alter that number that's showing up on your call display. You have absolutely no way to confirm who you're speaking with unless you're making that outgoing call.
Especially when they start asking for information, I'm like, shouldn't you already have this? I don't
And that's an important point, because sometimes even if they have information, it still doesn't mean that, you could have been part of a breach and they're using that information that they gathered from,
Right.
a simple breach. Just be safe. Always let them know you're going to call them back.
Is there any scam right now? Like, I've heard this, but sometimes you don't know if it's actually a scam or if it's false information. Are there scams where people are calling just to get you to speak so that they can get your voice recognition? Like, I've heard that is a thing. Is that an actual scam or is that false?
You know what? Like, based on what the information that we have, that hasn't been confirmed.
Oh, okay.
With that being said, the voice cloning technology is out there, right? So you want to be careful. We always advise that, if you don't recognize the phone number, don't answer it. If it's important, they'll leave a voicemail, right? So that's the best way to protect yourself. An investigation has yet to determine that voice recognition or voice cloning has been used for fraud.
I know I've heard of people saying that they've got phone calls saying, it's your son, I need money, I'm in trouble, that kind of thing. And I know that people have fell for it before. They went to the bank, and I've heard a situation where a bank teller has stopped it. But I know there's probably people that have got taken advantage of that one because they panic. They think their kid or their grandkid's in trouble. Is that one right now that's active?
It is. So that's classified under emergency fraud, often referred to as a grandparent scam.
Right.
So there was actually an arrest last week made by the OPP, which they had a big press conference. Very prominent fraud in certain areas of the country. So the way that works is, you kind of touched on it a bit, is a phone call claiming to be a loved one or grandchild. Not always a grandchild. It could be, a niece or a nephew.
Yeah.
Claiming that they've been in an accident in a lot of cases, and they're being charged with a serious offense like a DUI or texting while driving, right? And they're in a lot of cases, a second suspect will come on the phone claiming to be a lawyer or a police officer, saying that a bail payment is required to stop your loved one from going to jail. And that's where, in some cases, the fraudsters will actually go pick up cash at the victim's residence. And but in other cases, they'll be asked to go to the bank, like you mentioned, and deposit the funds into a bank account.
That's so sad. Like, they're taking advantage of these people who are trying to help out someone. It's so sad.
It is. And you know what? All more reason to get this prevention messaging out there. Obviously, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center can't get to everyone.
Yeah.
So it's important that if you have some of the knowledge, some of the information, share that knowledge with your friends or loved ones, family members that you think may be a little more vulnerable.
Some tips that you could share just to be safe online, whether it's social media or websites, or is there anything that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so I think you're touching on compromised social media accounts. So you get a message from somebody on your contact list, a friend or a family member, and the message seems a little strange. They could be offering you, saying that they made money in an investment platform, or they could be saying that they received a grant and they think that you're eligible for that grant.
Yes.
And they ask you for personal information to apply on that grant, your driver's license. So the main thing with this here is that you have to remember that social media accounts can be compromised. So if you get a strange message that, a little out of the ordinary, that first instinct's normally right.
Mhm.
If you're not sure, pick up the phone, for example, and call that person directly and ask them, "Hey, did you send me this message? It seems a little off." Now, phishing is another big one, right? So whether it's a text message or an email claiming to be the CRA or one of your service providers or financial institution saying your account has to be updated, or you have to change your password. A lot of these messages are becoming more sophisticated and in some cases harder to spot, right? So important thing with this is always avoid clicking on links before you're able to confirm, kind of like the phone call that, like we mentioned, because spoofing is out there with email addresses as well and text messages. So even if it's, looking like it's coming from the legitimate email address, look up the official phone number for the company, agency, and make that open call to ask them if that message actually came from them or not.
So anytime you're sent a link, if it's like maybe a phone number you don't recognize, or if the email just might look legit, but you're not exactly sure, just
Right. Yeah. But if you always remember that, you know what, I probably shouldn't click on that link unless I confirm or download an attachment and risk infected my device.
right.
Then you'll save yourself from being a victim. And you know what, like generally across the board, so many different types of fraud, but there's always a sense of urgency. The fraudsters always want you to act quickly so you don't have time to think about or discuss with somebody, right? So always take the time you need. Don't feel pressured, and do your due diligence and look into what's being offered, or look into the message or phone call you're receiving.
So can people contact, maybe not you specifically, but is there a phone number that people can call or an email that people can send information to if they just want to double check something?
Yes, you can call the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center at 1-888-495-8501. Or if you want to report online, you can do that through our website at antifraudcenter.ca. We have a fraud reporting system. There's two options to sign in. I'll run through that quickly because a lot of people get stuck on, what's a GC key, right? So you need one to be able to log in. So if you don't have a GC key, all you have to do is create a username, password. Once you do that, you log in with that information and you'll be able to file a report online, or you can use the sign-in partner, which is your financial institution information.
Okay. So GC key is just kind of getting verified with your information.
Yeah, it's more or less like a fancy word for username and password, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I will mention that if you have been a victim, very important to contact your local police and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. We do accept reports on attempts of fraud as well. So if you've been a target of fraud and you have important information you'd like to share, you can report that as well.
Okay, perfect.
And there's so much information on our website too. You can go through the different types of fraud or scams that we have. Click on Browse Scams. Go through there, and there's a good chance that if you have a question that you might come across the answer to your question.
Perfect. So I'll put the link to that too, because I did notice on your website you have lots of excellent tips. I mean, this is your area of expertise, so you guys know what you're talking about clearly.
I think we covered a lot of good information. Like I mentioned, it never feel pressured. So important. And whether you're looking to buy something online or invest or whatever, always do as much research as you can before making a decision. In a lot of cases, or most cases, victimization happens very quickly. So it's so important to take your time and look into to what's being offered or what you're coming across, whether it's an ad on social media or even online, right? So
the two big things that I've noticed really recently are the buy sell sites on Facebook. People are either creating fake accounts or they're hacking someone's account so it looks legit, and then they're putting stuff up for sale and it looks real. And I've seen a friend that they had their account hacked, so now I'm on their new account and she keeps saying, I've reported this. This is not a real person. They're asking people for money and people are paying for these items because it might be like a $50 shelf or something. and it looks real and they pay and then it doesn't exist. So that's
Right.
a big one that I've noticed, that I'm always leery now on any of the buy sell sites. Like, I go and click on the person's profile to see, have they had active, like, have they been posting? Like, is their account active, to see if it's actually legit? If you have any Facebook pages, there's all these people messaging saying your account's going to be deactivated or whatever. Don't really know what they're looking for there. A lot of times I think they want you to click a link or something, but I've seen different businesses say my account's going to be deactivated. I'm like, it's not, it's a scam. Like, don't click anything. It's not real. So those are two big ones that I've seen, but I know that there's so many that we couldn't cover everything. I just want to thank you so much for all this information. I think it's so important. I'm going to include all the links, the phone number that people can reference as well. So I just want to thank you again, because I think it's so important, and hope that this stops someone from being taken advantage of.
My pleasure. It was really a pleasure being here today, and hopefully, even if you get one bit of information from what was discussed today, then it can go a long way. And like I mentioned, try to share some of that information with your family members and loved ones, and let's prevention and education is the number one tool to fight fraud. So the more we spread that, the more protected we are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Star Podcast.